Hello, everyone, and welcome in. We are so thrilled that you have joined us today. We have a great presentation and demo in store for you. Just going to give everybody about 2 minutes to come into the meeting and get situated. Great time to grab some water, coffee, whatever you're feeling, and we will get started in about 2 minutes. If you are just now entering the meeting, welcome. We're just going to give everybody about 1 more minute to enter and get situated. Thanks so much for your patience. All right, looks like we are ready to rock and roll. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We're really thrilled that you're here. Please, if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to drop them in the little box on the right side, and we'll get those answered for you. So that is there at your convenience, and we're really excited. And I'm going to flip it over to our wonderful presenter, Brant.
Thank you, Madison. Welcome, everyone. I appreciate your time in joining us as we do a new weekly demo. This week, focusing on a new product that we're launching called AttackIQ Enterprise. A little bit about me. I've been with AttackIQ almost 6 years, worn several different hats in the company, but primarily focused on field and the customer success and the customer experience. And now professional services, which leads me to what we are doing here today. So AttackIQ is best known for BAS, breach and attack simulation. Thank you very much, Gardner, for giving the market a label probably about 6 or 7 years ago when we were just coming up. For the record, we've been in business for about 10 years, doing exactly what we do, which in our world is security control validation, specifically a platform that delivers continuous security control validation. And so if we'd had the opportunity to label the market, that's what we would have called it, because that's the value that we see us delivering. BAS is one method of delivering that. So if we want to test our security controls, then absolutely. Let's observe what the bad guys are doing out in the world, and let's emulate or simulate that behavior and observe our security controls and how they react and respond. And so that is very much in line with what we do. The methodology in which we do it is in tight alignment with MITRE ATT&CK. If you're familiar with the framework, we are a founding research member of the Center for Threat Informed Defense, which is the sponsor of MITRE ATT&CK. So with that background out of the way, I'm showing you the architecture slide. So this is more the technical demo. Obviously, you can reach out and chat with sales folk if you wish. I'm going to keep this more on the technical side, but why we're here today is to talk about AttackIQ Enterprise, and it's a brand new offering, but it's based off of the core functionality of the platform, which has been around for a decade doing security control validation. The difference between the previous offering and now this AttackIQ Enterprise is it's a co-managed service. as in you have a warm body from AttackIQ that's an expert in the platform, that's an expert in breach and attack simulation, that is now assisting customers as they stand up the platform and establish a security control validation program. We've learned a lot of lessons. We've built this platform specifically designed to deliver this, and now helping customers achieve that vision with an actual human, an engineer that is working with an organization, learning about the organization, learning about what's important to them, what security controls they have, and then setting up the right program and helping them set up that program to eventually run the security control validation program on their own. So from a demo perspective, there's not a lot of difference. The platform is the platform. It is a best-in-breed BAS platform, if you will, that enables a lot of functionality in how to validate your security controls and play the role of the adversary in your production environment. The architecture slide outlines a lot of the functionality. At the top, you see the adversaries. A step down, you see different modalities, we'll call them, of testing. So different means of testing different security controls that you have in the environment, to include a PCAP replay capability, where you can orchestrate communications between multiple systems in the environment, that allows you to do robust testing of network inspection tools. So if your network controls are designed to monitor traffic and the contents of communications, and perform some kind of alert or response to them, then this is the best way to do it. Let's actually orchestrate a communication that has the trigger in it, run through that full back and forth communication stream, and then measure the response of the security control that should have responded. And we have a lot of different ways to use that PCAP replay in the platform. We also have kind of the core, the atomic testing capability. So these are individual tests. These are TTPs that align with that MITRE ATT&CK framework. These are behaviors that we can execute in the environment, and then once again measure the response of the security control, either in its ability to prevent the execution of that TTP or alert based on the presence of that behavior or TTP. And then lastly, we build up to attack graphs. So these are full flows, these end-to-end campaigns of all the way from an initial access to the impact, if you follow the MITRE ATT&CK framework, of how an adversary pursues their campaign in the environment. So step by step, all built in and a capability that's available in the platform. So these are options that customers of AttackIQ have today. These are all options that AttackIQ Enterprise leverages as we help stand up a security control program, or validation program for our customers. And you can see the different security controls that are exercised down below. And so I just wanted to throw up the architecture slide, talk about that a little bit more before I get into the demo. All right. At this point, let's jump right into the demo. And I'm going to demo from, this is the platform itself. So this is the management console. So once you log in, you immediately land on the landing page. So enterprise customers get the exact same view as the AttackIQ engineer that's supporting them. And the landing page first talks about what's new. So what's going on out in the world. So you can see that we have responses to recent CISA advisories, as well as campaign research that we've been doing. We have our own adversary research team that is mapping threat actors, mapping what's going on in the world, and producing content that is available to our customers to run these different workflows, run these tests, either these full campaigns end to end in their environment, to see how their security controls would respond to a documented campaign of that adversary, or individual scenarios that emulate TTPs that have been documented from those adversaries. I guess a quick way to showcase this is to take advantage of the try it button. So looking at Lazarus's 3CX supply chain compromise. Let's go ahead and click try it, which is going to open up a brand new attack graph assessment based on this campaign. And so a lot's going on in here. Let me scroll through, but hopefully the visual that you see is a step-by-step campaign. Campaign that consists of different scenarios. These are individual TTPs. So you can see the first part of this campaign is exercising signature-based controls. So saving an actual sample to the file system to validate whether or not local antivirus recognizes that signature and how it responds to the discovery of that signature. And then it gets into the meat of it. So DLL sideloading as a mechanism for execution, obtaining machine GUID, so doing some recon and data collection from those endpoints. So you can see step-by-step with prevented, not prevented logic. So we can dictate what we do based on the response of a security control. And so we can go all the way through this campaign from beginning to end with the logic involved, reporting on the outcomes and potential stopping points of where security controls actually prevented the execution of this campaign. So all this is available. This is available as part of that enterprise package. And we are happy to run customers through the execution of these workflows. Other examples of work in the platform. So these examples, let me open up a security control baseline. So I talked about the core functionality of the platform being a test and validation of the capability of security controls. This baseline assessment is an example of that, where you can see we've broken down different tests that are focused on exercising common security controls. So local antivirus, using samples to test either network-based or endpoint-based antivirus. Endpoint protection, I can open up these scenarios and look at the content. And so you can see that there's just a sampling of different capability, doing credential harvesting, doing execution, establishing persistence, privilege escalation, just a series of atomic tests that we've put together that we can execute in an environment and establish whether or not endpoint security is functioning as you would expect against these behaviors. You can obviously look at the different security controls. You can customize them. So if I'm testing DLP, we have a scenario. This one's exfiltrating credit cards. You have a lot of ability to customize the scenarios. So files to exfiltrate, we can auto-generate data. You can provide user-based data. You can customize, in this case, auto-generation, the number of entries of credit card-based data. So a lot of ways to actually create your own testing and customize it based on your environment and your expectations about your security controls. But ultimately, you identify now where these tests or these scenarios will execute. So we know what we want to test. Now we can identify where to test and execute those scenarios. Which leads me to results. So we have the high-level results widget and dashboard, but we can also dive down a little bit deeper. So all the individual scenarios that are being executed are all listed here. And so first off, you can see that I'm tracking over time. How am I doing? My combined outcome, my detection results, and my prevention results are all tracked over time, and this assessment is scheduled to run on a daily basis. As I scroll down, And actually, then you can see where each scenario ran on the assigned endpoint with first a prevented outcome and then a detected outcome. So part of this architecture, we have test point software that sits on infrastructure in the environment. So it can sit on a Windows laptop or a Windows server, a Linux system or a Mac, and actually execute the assigned workflows out in the production environment, which is where you want data about your security posture. So we're executing those assigned workflows, and based on the execution, we're identifying whether or not a behavior was prevented or not prevented. So the scenarios are not just simple commands that are being run. We actually are first performing an environmental check. Is this test point, and where that test point is this appropriate for this scenario? If it is, then we will execute the assigned workflow. Could be dumping browser passwords with lasagna. Then we do a validation check. Were we successful? We're not just did the command run, but did the command accomplish what it was designed to do? In this case, harvest credentials, which gives us this prevented or not prevented outcome. And then lastly, we have a cleanup. So any changes that were made or any files that were deployed as a function of the scenario are now cleaned up. So we revert that system back to its known good state, and then close out that scenario, and then potentially start the next series of scenarios and conduct testing. But it's because we have that logic in the scenario that we're able to conduct testing in the production environment safely but effectively, and actually evaluate the effectiveness of security controls there. Secondarily, we have the concept of a detection. So we achieve that because the platform actually ties into the security controls that are in the environment. So we connect to them using their native APIs. So we'll connect to Splunk or CrowdStrike or SentinelOne. And as we're testing, we are going to monitor that dashboard or that console for alerts that match our behavior. So if that technology does see us and put an alert on a dashboard, we can give them attribution. And so for each scenario that we run, you see that we have a prevented status and then a detected status for all of them. So I have one more level of drill down. So when I actually run these executions, then you can see that we do very detailed logging as we execute. So we are consider ourselves an open systems platform, in that we are very transparent about how we conduct testing, especially in that production environment. That's important. So we want customers to have access to the data to understand exactly how we're executing. And so part of this this service is making sure that that data is also available, and that transparency continues throughout the service. But going through the different steps of execution, how we executed, what we were looking for, and validation that we found what we were looking for. Mitigation recommendations. So what do we recommend for each scenario? This typically ranges from some generic recommendation or a TTP to some specific mitigations that could be applied that could mitigate this particular implementation of a TTP. Detection details, where did we look, where were we monitoring, what consoles were there, and then observable details. So what are the IOCs of our execution? In this case, we were using PowerShell, and you can see the actual command line. So if you were looking inside your Splunk or your logs and your security tools, we would help you find hopefully evidence of our execution and potentially understand why it didn't alert or fire an alert. And so very detailed examples of exactly what we're doing. So once again, very granular detail for all of our executions. And I'm going to pause and take a look at some of the questions and see if I can field them here. All right, so question, are your controls mapped to a specific framework where it can be tested, audited, such as NIST 800, 171, CMMC, SOC 2? So are our controls mapped? So technically, we don't have controls. We are testing controls, and we actually can do that mapping, or basically reference the mapping that the MITRE and the CTID created. So there is, and there exists, a mapping between the MITRE attack framework, which we do align to, and NIST 853, which is a derivative of 800-171. So as we conduct testing, and there are actually assessment templates in platform that have that alignment built in. So you can conduct testing against the various frameworks and test the efficacy in that context. So hopefully I answered that question. And then next question, can we test against a specific framework? So our content aligns with MITRE ATT&CK, and so that's the framework that we are tightly aligned with. We're doing what the bad guys do out in the world today, and kind of agnostic to the security control frameworks. So MITRE ATT&CK is the flip side of what I consider the traditional security framework. Security frameworks are all about what you as a defender should be doing, what you should have, what the tools you have should be capable of. And so it's a checklist of all those things. MITRE ATT&CK ignores all of that. It's more about the vernacular and the common language of how to describe what the bad guys are doing. And most of the time, and actually I won't say most of the time, bad guys aren't necessarily concerned about what security controls you have. They're concerned about the techniques and procedures that are effective for them. And so they are running their playbook. And their playbook is vastly different than a security framework. And so these mappings that the CTID has published that actually associate now these TTPs with the various security frameworks can be valuable. And so we can run our playbook and run our assessments, but then create reports that show the mapping back to these NIST frameworks and other frameworks as well. And so if you want more information about NIST or want to see examples of that, please follow up. We'll be reaching out with, I guess, contact information or contact opportunities once the demo is over, and we can dig a little bit deeper into exactly what you're looking for from a reporting framework when it comes to NIST 853 and 171. All right. Okay, so you've seen the basic functionality of the platform. A couple other things to look at is the scenario library. So you've seen the scenarios kind of employed either in an attack graph, those are the individual TTPs, or in atomic assessments where they're focused on testing security controls. Those are all pulled from this main library here. And you can see in this case, this library has over 4,300. We've done some customization, so we may have more than the standard library, but this is all part of getting a library customized, and also part of the enterprise capability of if we want to inject context into some of these scenarios so that they target differently in your environment, or target something specific in your environment, then the enterprise service helps establish those types of scenarios. But the library itself, kind of a simple structure. You have search capability. So if you were looking for, let's say, the paper cut, which hit the news recently. So you can see different scenarios that can be used to validate security controls against paper cut attacks, or monitoring for paper cut based communications or traffic. So you can also see the different taggings. So a lot of structure in our library and how we organize content. So you can see the different MITRE attack tactics, security control focused tagging, different flavors of ransomware, the threat intelligence feeds, so content based off of those alerts. So a lot of different ways to slice and dice or search the library itself. One thing that's relatively new is the incorporation of the MITRE attack calculator. So if you're familiar with the CTID and the MITRE framework, one of the things that they've put together is this MITRE calculator, where you can answer questions about your environment or what's important to you. And so putting together different combos of what you have allows you to generate results. So this is the top 10 list based on the MITRE in the CTID and their logic and algorithm of what you should focus on as an organization with your security controls. And so we have this calculator built into the platform, which allows you to run the calculator, but take that output and immediately turn that into an assessment. So create the assessment. Which is now going through the library and finding content that maps to those different TTPs. It's pre-building all of that into an assessment, and in a few minutes it's going to drop me into it. And there it is. So you have the different TTP IDs all the way down to the sub-technique, and you can go in and take a look. So serial number using WMI. The actual TTP is 1047, Windows Management Instrumentation. We pulled a scenario that uses that exercises that capability in a TTP fashion. So just another example of a capability in platform and one that is available as part of the joint service of Enterprise. All right. Before I get there, let's talk a little bit about reporting. So we do security control validation. Obviously, we have our goals in mind. We want to inform an organization about their security posture, about functionality and capability of their security controls in the context of the adversary. What are the bad guys doing? But also in the context of the marketing spec sheet of that security control. You bought that firewall says it does X, Y, and Z. Let's make sure it's doing X, Y, and Z for you, that you have it configured correctly. You turned all the dials and checked all the boxes to enable that functionality. And that is a common kind of focus when we help customers implement, is going through those basic security checks. And if we find, or when we find that a security control is not behaving based on expectations, helping dig in and understand what the appropriate configuration of that security control should be, helping implement that, and now revalidating, and now remeasuring the security posture and the improvements of this program. So a lot of ways to present that data. You've seen results over time in previous views. We have executive summaries. So dashboards themselves, customers can log in and see MITRE-focused content, scenario-based content. So what are we running? What's going on in my program? So you can see a focus on various types of testing. I can see report cards for the security controls that are in my environment and my progress over time. So dashboards are one way of presenting that data. Built-in reports are another. So in this case, a security assessment that was focused specifically on exercising CrowdStrike. You can go through and we have a very detailed output. So number of scenarios, testing on one asset, and now I have a report card based on that assessment. We also have a capability that is actually the subject of next week's live demo, Jupyter Notebooks. So it's actually a notebook, collaborative notebooks, specifically embedding a Jupyter Hub in the platform that makes it very easy to run these notebooks. So users that are familiar with these notebooks get very excited. This is a very powerful tool to perform data enrichment. So how can I extract data about the platform, about the program, about the results, and potentially mesh it with other forms of data. But we have our own notebooks built in as examples of how the data can be extracted. You can get very detailed with visualizations in the notebooks. So some of these have cool kind of single pane of glass views, but we'll save kind of that full demo for next week. But I'm previewing it here because AttackIQ Enterprise leverages this capability. So once again, it's a co-managed service. So the needs of this organization they want different types of data or data presented differently than what's built into the platform. Because you have an AttackIQ engineer that has this capability, we can now extract that data, present that data in the manner that the organization wants to consume it. And so this is one way and one tool in the toolbox of that AttackIQ engineer that makes enterprise so powerful. So wanted to showcase that. All right. Well, I believe I made it through the core of what I wanted to show. Once again, it is a breach and attack simulation capability focused on validating security controls, reporting on the posture of the security inside the organization. It's an AttackIQ engineer helping organizations set this up, generate reports on both at the technical level and at the executive level. I've walked through some of the different tools and some of the different views of this capability. So if there are no further questions, and it doesn't look like there are, then I believe we can wrap for the day. So Madison, back to you.
Thank you so much, Brant. That was great. I'm not seeing any questions come in, but of course, if you do have questions once we end this, please feel free to reach out to us to chat more. And we hope to see you next week where we will demo more about that Jupyter capability that Brant was discussing. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great day.